Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Sandra and today's video is going to be on the top non-technical jobs in cybersecurity. So this video was actually suggested by one of you guys in the comments. So if there's any videos that you would like to see from me in the future, please drop them down in the comments and I will add them to my backlog. But just as a starter, I definitely think that cybersecurity is one of those fields that has very interesting non-technical roles as well as very well-paying non-technical roles, which is also something that is important to factor in because there are some fields in technology where non-technical roles usually are paid significantly less than their typical technical counterparts, which isn't necessarily the case in cybersecurity. This is a list of 5 non-technical roles in cybersecurity. And the first one on my list is a security risk analyst. And on average, a security risk analyst makes about $91,000 per year based on salary numbers from Glassdoor. And as a security risk analyst, your job is to help assess each potential threat and determine whether or not your current network system is vulnerable to certain threats or findings. This is definitely one of the most collaborative roles in cybersecurity, since a lot of what you'll be doing is also working with other teams, figuring out what their risks are, maybe doing SWOT analysis, maybe managing a risk board. For example, anytime your team or your company decides to accept a risk for some vulnerability or some finding, then they typically will have to complete a form, like a risk acceptance form. This will vary hugely depending on the company that you're in, which will determine the process and the documentation. But usually these are kept somewhere. It could be a folder, it could be a risk board, it could be a document, it could be a Trello board. There's a lot of different ways for your company to be able to document this, but the most important thing is the fact that it's documented. So you as a risk analyst, maybe the person who may be reviewing these forms or managing the risk board, depending on what things come in on a regular basis. So while you're not necessarily in a technical role per se, it definitely will be a role that exposes you to a lot of different technologies and vendors or tools that are being used across your organization, so that you're also able to understand what things are considered high risk versus low risk, as well as in terms of priority to fix for your company once there may be more budget or time or engineering hours allotted for specific risks to be fixed. Now, another part of your job is really going to be looking at risk across the board for your company as well as the sector that you're in. So you may also be keeping up with the news in terms of cybersecurity trends, new hacks that are out there, new tooling that is out there. And while you may not necessarily be using the tooling hands-on per se, it would definitely be an added benefit to you to be able to know those tools so that you're able to understand what risks are out there that may impact your company, your team, any of your applications, or the vendors that you rely on. The cyber risk analyst is also responsible for determining what and when cybersecurity attacks may occur. You may be leveraging their intelligence tools or other intel sources that may be able to help you provide those potential risks to upper management so that they're able to understand the overall landscape of the risks that are out there. A cyber risk analyst should be able to see the big picture and also apply their analytical and problem-solving skills to determine which potential threats deserve attention. Alright, the next role on this list is a governance or compliance analyst. A compliance analyst makes on average about $61,000 per year based on average salaries from Glassdoor. Compliance analysts are definitely key players in your company's governance, risk, and compliance organizations. Your job is to make sure that your company's operations and procedures meet government and industry compliance standards. On a regular day-to-day basis, they may be researching regulations or researching policies, communicating different requirements to teams that may need to know them, as well as apply for internationally acclaimed or industry standard compliance certifications on behalf of their organizations. This is also one of those jobs where you may be working with people, because as a compliance analyst, you will also be training employees on industry standards, developing policies across your company, wherever it may pertain to staying compliant with certain standards, as well as evaluating compliance. Of course, depending on the company, this may be part of your job, or it may be passed over to an internal auditing team, kind of like in a way where one group makes the rules and sets the standards and the other one enforces them and makes sure that people are following them. But if you're in a smaller company, then it likely is going to be one and the same, where you are the compliance, governance, and auditing entity for your company. And here's a list of a few responsibilities for a compliance analyst. Researching industry compliance regulations and policies, evaluating internal operational and procedural compliance, analyzing and updating existing compliance policies, developing new compliance policies as required, record keeping and training other employees on what regulations and policies that they have to follow to stay compliant with all the industry standards that may pertain to your specific sector. For example, if you're in a sector that is highly regulated, like finance or government or healthcare, then those are probably going to be the main hot areas for compliance analysts to be able to thrive and grow in their career. Not to say that there aren't compliance analysts in other sectors, but I do think those 3 sectors may be the ones with the most need for compliance analysts to keep up with different compliance regulations and industry standards. The next role on this list is a security sales engineer. The average salary for a security sales engineer in the US is $98,000 per year. Now, before you guys skip this one because I mentioned sales, this is actually one of the most important roles in small to medium-sized companies that are growing, and specifically if they have some kind of SaaS product or product or service that they're planning to sell B2B or to other businesses. As a security sales engineer, your job is to know some of the technical workings of the SaaS product or the software that you're going to be selling to other companies. You may be joining sales calls to be able to pitch it or maybe give a demo. You don't necessarily have to know the deep inner workings the same way as some of the more technical stakeholders on the team, but typically when companies are looking to buy some kind of software product, they also want to know how secure it is. So part of your job may be to know all things security revolving around this particular product. This could deal with vulnerability management, backups, encryption, basically anything that a company would want to know about your product from a security perspective. Those are the things that you may want to know. A cybersecurity sales engineer also acts as the primary resource for sales, as part of their job is to combine their security knowledge about a specific software as well as sales skills in order to provide consultation to current and potential customers and partners. They'll be working closely with the sales team in the development and execution of the entire sales process, and a few of their responsibilities include building sales relationships, delivering value to customers through solution presentations, product demos, customer workshops, as well as proof of concept deployments, answering any security questions or providing insight into best practices, assisting in customer engagement on behalf of stakeholders, as well as educating key partners and customers on the latest security technologies. So sales teams are really the lifeblood of most software companies out there, and I really think that this is one of the most interesting roles to get into if you're someone who enjoys working with people, if you're someone who also is interested in that business side or the financial side, making a sale, finding customers, engaging with the customers, and following through with that whole life cycle. In general, I think sales is probably one of the most important skills that you could learn if you're someone who is interested in going into that business side, and it's definitely a role that you can learn a lot in with cross-functional skills that bring together cybersecurity as well as the business side. The next role on this list is an information security awareness specialist. A security awareness specialist makes on average about $85,000 per year based on average salaries from Glassdoor. So as you can tell, a lot of the jobs on those lists kind of bring together cybersecurity plus one other sector. And I think security awareness is one of those, is probably the role that brings together cybersecurity as well as some HR/people team functions. So most companies nowadays do have some kind of security awareness training or campaign that they will require their employees to take once they start onboarding, or maybe it's on an annual basis or biannual. But basically, most companies hopefully want to make sure that their employees are taking their security awareness training to help make sure that they are staying compliant for certain audits or certifications that they may be going for. This includes things like teaching your employees what a phishing attack is, telling them not to click on suspicious links, making sure that they're not trusting everything that they're hearing, even if it's through an email sent to their company email. While some companies just have their security team managing all these security awareness campaigns, there are also companies who have specific roles to manage everything related to security awareness training. Your job is to manage all of those security training campaigns, making sure that people are completing them and following up either with them or escalating to the management team if they are not completed within a specific amount of time that follows your process, making sure that any new learning material that may be relevant to your company's employees is then added to those security training, making sure that you're staying compliant with all the external audits and certifications that you may be trying to go for. Personally, I think security awareness training is definitely one of the most interesting areas to get into if you're someone who is interested in helping and teaching people or managing campaigns to teach people, especially with more and more companies having remote employees or hybrid employees where people are working from different places outside of the office. Security awareness training is even more important now more than ever. And the next role on this list is a security auditor. A security auditor makes on average about $82,000 per year based on average salaries from Glassdoor. Now this is the role that I specifically mentioned earlier that kind of goes hand in hand with a compliance or governance analyst, where one team may be writing the rules, creating the guidelines and policies, and the other team, which is the auditing team, is checking to see, making sure that people are staying compliant with those rules. Sometimes these teams can be combined, other times they can be separated, depending on how big the company is and the need for, a separate auditing structure. As someone who has worked through a security audit in my previous role, this is definitely one of the roles in cybersecurity where you have to be interested in reading and writing other people's, and that is definitely something that is really important. Then that is going to be one of the key skills that you're going to be using on the job. There are security auditing teams that are technical, that are kind of more so related to a red team or an offensive security team. But there are other security auditors who audit specifically processes and how a team or a specific organization is adhering to a specific policy or process or procedure. The main goal of your job as an internal security auditing team is to ensure that your organization can pass an audit and catch any hiccups or red flags or any skeletons hiding in the closet before an external auditor comes in and performs their audit, because that's the one that's going to count. So as an auditing team, typically you can kind of be seen as like the police of a company, and honestly no team wants to hear that they are being audited, but I will say that it's really helpful in kind of getting you on the right path for what your process needs to look like for it to adhere to certain compliance standards that maybe you may not have known of. Security auditors carry out audits based on organizational policies and governmental regulations. They work closely with IT to assess security controls and practices, as well as test IT systems to identify risks. The main reasons why security audits are important is because of the fact that they help identify security problems and gaps, as well as system weaknesses before external auditors come in. They also help establish a security baseline that future audits can be compared with. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hopefully this was interesting to you guys and gave you some idea of specific roles that you may want to go into in cybersecurity that aren't necessarily technical or require you to have red team or blue teaming skills or even coding skills. There's definitely room for everyone in cybersecurity, and I really think that the more diversity of thought that we have, the better we'll be able to secure our organizations and data and people that you want to protect. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're someone who is interested in going into cybersecurity, I do have a course on how to get your first job in cybersecurity, as well as other cybersecurity career products linked in my description below. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on post notifications. I post videos every Wednesdays and Sundays at 12 p.m. and hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!